Is this good?
It doesn't amplify.
All right, so I'm gonna try and speak as loud as I can. Hello, everybody. My name is Sebastian, and I'm the founder of the Mycologist. And the Mycologist, what it essentially is St. Petersburg's first functional mushroom extraction laboratory. And I started this in 2020. And with the vision in mind, I had two words. One was regeneration. The other one was functionality. So it feels like kind of like a theme tonight, especially with Jimmy's demonstration, which was amazing, by the way. And how we're kind of incorporating regeneration and functionality is through mushroom extracts. So is anybody familiar with functional mushrooms?
Hell yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, all mushrooms. They're all magical. They all have a lot of benefits, both medicinal as well as even for the gut microbiome. What we do here is essentially create organic mushroom extracts. And I'm essentially the extraction chemist. I have my own extraction laboratory based out of Beach Kombucha Brewery. I don't know if anybody knows Beach Kombucha. Yeah, amazing kombucha, local, small batch. Currently, we're curating the medicinal mushroom kombuchas with the beta-glucans that nourish the gut microbiome. And what I do is essentially create additional extracts, which are the essential oils from these mushrooms, like lion's mane, reishi, and even cordyceps. And we do it a little bit differently, all right? So one thing that I want to kind of give context around, or some pretext, is that a lot of mushroom extracts are usually made through a traditional process called maceration. All right, is anybody familiar with the word maceration? For anybody,
Your stomach does?
your stomach does something a little similar, mechanically speaking, in terms of stirring it and the heat. But maceration in the context of extraction is essentially, for example, you take a glass mason jar, maybe a gallon size or half gallon. You fill it up with like dried mushroom biomass, so like any mushroom powder, let's say lion's mane, for example. And then you fill it up with a solvent, which is essentially like a liquid chemical that can extract all of the oils out of the fruiting body. And what the fruiting body is, to give you a definition, is like that main part of the mushroom that you see growing up above the soil, off a log, or on a decaying tree. So essentially they break that mushroom down into a powder, they put it into the jar, they fill it up with ethanol, and then they shake it around. They shake it for about 2 weeks, and they shake it daily, and that essentially just pulls off some of the oils that are on it. And these oils, which are typically called like terpenoids, if anybody's familiar with like terpenes and cannabis, just like cannabis, mushrooms have their own terpenoids that are novel and unique to them, and they have amazing benefits, like open up the lungs, because a lot of them are steroids. They're like precursors to steroids, kind of like albuterol with like inhalers for asthma patients, but they're like a natural alternative that's meant to open up, bronchodilate, increase blood flow as well, because mushrooms like reishi, for example, are able to potentiate nitric oxide in the body. So it's driving more blood, driving more water into different parts of the body. So it's hydrating, and it's also functional in what it does, biomechanically as well as like pharmacokinetically. So to kind of translate that, with the people that do traditional maceration and shake it in the jar, we do it a little bit differently at the Mycologist. We have a system called a soxhlet extractor. I don't know if anybody's heard of that, soxhlet extractor. It's essentially spelled like S-O-X-H-L-E-T, soxhlet extractor. And it was created by Franz von Soxhlet, who was homies with Louis Pasteur, who created the process of pasteurization. He was playing with milk, and Franz von Soxhlet was playing with testing soil. And then fast forward, let's say 50 years down the line, someone who had a bunch of mushrooms probably just saw this piece of equipment and said, damn, maybe I could put mushrooms in that and see what comes out of that. So it ultimately led to the soxhlet extractor becoming like this pivotal centerpiece with extracting all of the terpenoid oils that are in these mushrooms that have strong bioactivity, whether it's for the lungs, whether it's for the liver, or whether it's for the brain. Each of these mushrooms, as well as each of their extracts, target different organs functionally in terms of stimulating them or regulating their response or even modulating it. Whether it's an overactive organ or an underactive one, they're typically meant to essentially help you modulate your body and bring it back to a healthier baseline of function. So to give an example today, I'm bringing you guys our lion's mane extracts. Anybody familiar with the lion's mane mushroom? Yeah, big brain boosting mushroom. Great for cognitive health, especially for like the older demographics that are looking to preserve their cognitive faculties. I think it's important, if we want to preserve the wisdom of those that came before, lion's mane is a great way to do it. And that's just one target market, and essentially what it does is that it stimulates the nervous system. All right. So there are these oils in lion's mane that are rich in these terpenoid oils called erinacins and hericenones. All right. And these are essentially molecules that have activity to stimulate nerve growth factor in the body, so they can stimulate the nervous system from the mind to the body. So if you think about it in the context of the gym, it can enhance your mind-body connection by stimulating the nervous system. And then it also stimulates BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And that is essentially like a peptide that crosses the blood-brain barrier and stimulates the brain to produce more neurons and regenerate the nervous system, both in the body and in the brain. So in the context of like dementia and Alzheimer's, there's a lot of medicinal value there. And in terms of just, activating your mind and getting more into like a focus and flow state, that's also what the lion's mane oils do. They create more of like a richer connection of neurons in the brain, and they also stimulate two parts of the brain. One being the hippocampus, which is a part of the brain that's responsible for forming short-term, long-term memories, as well as the emotions associated with those memories. And then it also stimulates production in the locus coeruleus. Sounds fancy, but it's really just a terminology that explains a part of the brain that is responsible, or essentially the locus coeruleus is the primary production site of norepinephrine. Does anybody know norepinephrine? So norepinephrine is kind of like our endogenous like adrenaline. So whenever we like drink coffee, it's producing cortisol and noradrenaline. And these are the things, these are like the chemical cocktails that give us that focus, flow state, and like that alertness to be like in the zone, when you're working out and you're just hitting one rep to the next, one workout to the next without really thinking about it. You're just doing it and you're being it. So it stimulates that part of the brain, creating more of that focus energy without the cortisol that caffeine produces. So that's one benefit. You're not exhausting your adrenal glands. You're just going straight to the source and producing the noradrenaline there. And then ultimately, what I love about it is that it just creates more of these richer connections to where like when I do my functional workouts outside, like primal movements or calisthenics, I feel like I'm able to just, bring the boundaries of where my body can move and how it can move to new kind of realms, I kind of discover new ways I can move, and I just feel more like in my body. So that's ultimately what lion's mane does. To kind of add some other like caveats of context, like I have one guy who studies at Eckerd College, writes papers, and he was actually taking Adderall for quite some time. Essentially, prescribed meth, if we just kind of straight up say it, it's a pharmaceutical and it has a lot of adverse side effects. And I think we're in a new age that's progressively trying to get away from the pharmaceutical industry, that cycle of dependence, as well as high ticket price for something that doesn't necessarily help you and it comes with a trade-off. And we're starting to shift more towards, a new age of thinking of naturally derived sourced pharmaceuticals that just come straight from nature. Because mushrooms have been around here for millions and millions of years. I mean, like the earliest record of a mushroom was 300 million years ago, and it was a mushroom called Prototaxites, and it was over 30 feet tall. Yeah, like dino mushrooms all around us. And 300 million years ago, there weren't even trees yet, and it was really just mushrooms there terraforming the soil, getting the Earth biosphere ready for whatever life was coming next. So they had this like ancient archetype and like role, in the universe. And if you look at a mushroom a little bit more closer in the timeline, like reishi, anybody familiar with reishi? Potent, amazing mushroom. It's super cosmic, it's super alien looking, and it has really potent benefits, and it's been around for around 6,000 years. That's probably like the earliest record of human use of it in China. And then around 3,000 years, it's been highly valued in traditional Chinese medicine. Reishi's been around for 38 million years, at least the DNA genetic sequences have found. And whenever I take that into account, the idea that a mushroom has been around for 38 million years, longer than so many other living organisms, longer than us, I think that speaks volumes of like the harmony that mushroom has found within its own being to be able to persevere through numerous natural disasters across 38 million years. So with that in mind, I think there's a lot we can learn from mushrooms like reishi. And I think there's intuitive theories of how these mushrooms can kind of quantum entangle and upgrade our DNA in unique ways. And if you believe in epigenetics, I think they could possibly turn on some great sutras that could help us evolve to new realms of thought and kind of just feeling and relaxation and just harmony within our own being. Because it's a difficult world. There's a lot of toxins that we're being exposed to, and the food isn't necessarily the safest kind of way to nourish ourselves, so we got to be mindful. And I think mushrooms are a great functional way to kind of take the edge off, be a buffer between all of these, toxic forces that are around us, and also be incorporated into our lifestyle and routine functionally for a variety of things, whether it's lion's mane for your brain health and cognitive function, or just an alternative for focus and alertness, or whether it's reishi for just being a potent bronchodilator if you love to do breath work I strongly recommend reishi. And it's also known to detoxify the liver because it signals our body to produce the enzymes that normally clean out the liver. Our body already creates it, but reishi is kind of just that key that plugs in and helps our body produce that on its own because, you know, our liver's always kind of processing, metabolizing different drugs that we consume, you know, coffee being one, or like literal drugs, or even just alcohol if that's something that you dabble in. It really just depends. And then last but not least, we also offer cordyceps extracts. So I don't know if anybody knows cordyceps. Yeah, so the cordyceps, I was just drinking our cordyceps kombucha at Beach Kombucha, and we call it the sunset in Tibet. That's like the name we gave the flavor. And everybody always asks, like, why Tibet? Like, you know, how does that fit into all this? So there's a story behind cordyceps. And it's a story about a yak herder. Does anybody know what a yak is? It's kind of like a water buffalo, but like in the mountains of Tibet. So like there's this yak herder, you know, just being a shepherd, just going up the mountain, you know, herding all of his yaks up, letting them graze all across the mountain. And while they're eating on this mountain, they're eating all these caterpillars that are in the ground. And the yak herder's like, oh, what are they eating? All right, you know, that's good. They're eating, they're grazing, you know, they're doing their thing. 30 minutes later, he makes it up further up the mountain, and he looks around because he starts hearing all these sounds. And these yaks, they start jumping up and down. They're going crazy. They're making like all kinds of sounds, you know. And they start having sex with each other too. And they start